Hello and welcome to another video in our series of Roman noble families. Today we are talking about perhaps the most famous of all Roman families, the Cornelii Scipiones. And what we are examining today is broadly that what kind of family culture could produce such geniuses like Scipio Africanus or Scipio Aemilianus, whose names are still remembered after well over 2000 years of their times and are still celebrated and admired and are known for so many millions of people and countless of generations after them. And our agenda is that I will start by going overview of the Cornelii Scipiones, and then I will go through the family branches of this quite remarkable and wide family, and then also discuss about the family connections of which we know about. And at last case, I will present the family culture and what kind of clashes there were that really made the later generations of family dysfunctional. So a lot to cover today, and let's get into it. Cornelii Scipiones overview. They are obviously a patrician gens and old one for that, and they have been at consular level from 395 BCE. I think this is the kind of remarkable family in the sense that there is 500 years of top magistrates for the Republic and for the Empire eras of Rome. And Cornelii obviously is very large family with many branches, and Cornelii Scipiones is just one of those branches, and is further divided into two main sub-branches. So it's a large and complicated family to look at. And also they have a very distinctive family culture, I think, and they are very well known for their military focus. Here is the overview of the whole entirety of what we know about Cornelii Scipiones. And as you can see, there are lots of individuals here. In fact, there are over 50 individuals that we know of by name. And when we see these main branches of the family and an overview of the family, there are two main branches that start from the sons of the consul of 259. And added to these two main branches, there are smaller branches as well, and most of which we cannot even place clear relation to the main branches. So we have quite incomplete overall view on how all of these individuals that we know about are actually related to each other. And the two main branches are called as Nasica and Africanus. This is one way of calling them, and I have chosen this. And this is based for the most known representatives of these sub-branches. And Africanus branch has deep connections with Aemilii Paulii and Sempronii Gracchii. And Nasica branch has deep connections with Caecilii Metellii and Licinii Grassii. So they form quite different kind of connects from each other. And also they have distinctive family cultures that is different in both of these branches. So there is a complexity. And we can start here by taking a look at these individuals that are disconnected from the main family line. I have collected them here, as well as a couple of sub-branches that we know that exist, but we cannot place into overall relation into the main family lines. No doubt there is a connection, and there are some connections that are even quite easy to guess. For example, it is possible that first Scipiones emerged at the end of the 1400s or early 300s BC, So it's possible that the interrex, for example, of 391 is amongst the first generations of the family, and that there are not that many generations before them, but we could be wrong, and there could be many generations before that particular individual. And as you can see in this chart, there are about 20 members of the family that are very difficult to place into family line with any certainty. And as you can see, there are even several consuls here that we don't know exactly whose sons they were and whose fathers they were. The name Scipio itself means a walking stick. And there is a legend about this family name that it comes from the fact that the first Scipio of his name helped his blind father to walk, and thereby being called as a walking stick, Scipio. And well, it might be true, and in any case, it's a nice story about the family name. Let's move on to the first generations of the Scipios that we actually know of and can place into the family line. And in the beginning of the family line here, what we know, there are several Scipiones from the times of the Punic Wars and before. And this is interesting and important fact, and also means that the Scipiones already had many family members available for military commands during this time. So it means that there has already been this kind of growing or expansion of the family into several generations and branches. We start from the consul of 298, Lucius Cornelius Scipio Barbatus, and he was a commander in the Third War against the Samnites. So we are moving quite early in the Republican history. Before him, we know that there was a consul of 328 who was also named as Scipio Barbatus, and based on the age difference, they could be father and son, but what we know is that they weren't. So perhaps this elder Scipio Barbatus was the uncle of the younger Scipio Barbatus, or we don't know. So that's why I haven't included any reference in the family line to him. And what we know is that both of these Barbatus Scipios served as Pontifex Maximus. So it was early on in the Scipionic family that we will find this religious importance of the family. Consul of 298, Scipio Barbatus was commander against the Etruscan forces for several years. And as a result of this Third Samnite War, Rome gained dominance over Italy. So this was the important turning point in Roman history, and Scipio Barbatus has had an important role in that event and kind of shaping the history of Rome early on, this family. Scipio Barbatus was also elected as a censor, and he had two sons, both of which reached consulship, and both of which were granted a triumph. So this is a very successful early family line of Scipios that was surely among the leading families of its time in Rome, based on the success of these generations of it. Consul of years 260 and 254 was Gnaeus Cornelius Scipio Asina, and he is also quite important figure in the early family history of Scipiones. He was the first ever commander of Roman navy, which makes him kind of trailblazer here in terms of Roman traditions. His nickname Asina, which means a female donkey, a jennet, comes from his ill-fated operation. When he had command of the navy and consulship, he got the information that the islands north from the Sicily, called Lipares, were ready to defect from the Carthaginian side to Romans. And Scipio Asina hurried there and with his navy in order to secure this new area and claim it for Rome. And when he arrived there and his ships were docked at the city harbors, the Carthaginian forces surrounded him both land and sea, and he was taken as a prisoner. So this was a Carthaginian plot to lure Roman naval commander into trap and remove him from the play. He was obviously released, and this defeat earned him his nickname. So he was called Asina for a reason. But in any case, he gained a second chance from the people and was elected as a consul for second time. And this time he conquered Panormus, which is today known as Palermo in Sicily, and for that feat he earned his triumph. So in the end he did make a good contribution for the war, and an important contribution, because obviously taking the Sicily was the first priority for the Romans to secure attack positions and defensive positions against Carthage. The other son of Scipio Barbatus became consul at 259. And during his consulship, he was leading the naval invasion to the island of Corsica and conquered Aleria and eventually the whole island. So he also made an important contribution to the war, like his brother. And he also tried to make landing at Sardinia, but this attempt failed. And in any case, the victory over the Corsica was a significant one, and he also was awarded with triumph for this. And he was also elected as a censor. And he showed his piety by building a temple into Rome as a thanks for gods for his victories. And both of the sons of this consul reached consulship as well. So we can see that the importance of family traditions with military skills and even being the early naval commanders here. Elder of his sons, Scipio Calvus, became consul at 222. And during his consulship he fought against Gauls, and during the Second Punic War he played a key role in the Roman victory by fighting in Hispania, and especially tying up a lot of Carthaginian forces there for several years, meaning that the Carthaginians didn't have that much forces to attack directly against Italy. This Scipio Calvus died in the Battle of Illorca at 211. And the younger son of the consul of 259 was the consul of 218, and this was actually the year when the Second Punic War started. And Senate gave the Scipio order to advance into Hispania and fight against Hannibal. And Scipio sailed into Massalia, which is Marseille in France today, and he was readying his army to march into Hispania when he got information that Hannibal had left Hispania and actually was crossing the Alps already. So this came as a surprise for him and the Romans. What Scipio did was that he ordered his brother Scipio Calvus, whom I referenced before, to advance into Hispania according to the original plan, and he himself continued to the northern Italy to meet Hannibal. And he was injured during this march at the cavalry battle, and later on his consular colleague lost at the Battle of Trebbia. So it was a not very successful excursion to stop Hannibal there in terms of Scipio family. After these events, the Scipio was ordered to proceed into Spain to share a command with his brother. So in Spain there were two Scipiones in command. And they fought many battles there against Carthaginians, tied a lot of Carthaginian forces there. And what's interesting is that also this Scipio died in a battle at 211, but not in the same battle as his brother did. So that was a bad year for the Scipiones, as they lost two skillful commanders and important consular family members in the same year at the war in Hispania. And in any case, this consul of 218 was the father of the famous Scipio Africanus. And when we look at the offspring of Scipio Asina, son of his carried the nickname of this father with pride. After all, it was the honor of his father was redeemed when he made it clear with the second time and conquered the important city in Sicily. This son was consul at 221, and at the starting year of the Second Punic War at 218, he took part in establishing the city of Placentia, that is Piacenza of today in Italy. Overall, these years were very much a high period of the Scipiones in the politics. They held 3 consulships at 222, 221 and 218. So it was a very much, if not dominance of the Scipiones back then, but they were amongst the rare top families of the Republic. At 216, the elections were deadlocked with competition between patricians and plebeians for power. And here younger Asina was appointed as interrex to arrange the elections of new consuls. And the winners were Lucius Aemilius Paulus and Caius Terentius Varros, who were both friends of younger Scipio Asina. And newly elected consuls marched to meet Hannibal in the north and suffered the devastating loss at the Battle of Cannae, in which Rome probably lost about 80,000 men, while Carthage lost only 1/10 of this. So it was a major strategic defeat for Rome. And this was also a crucial moment in the war, with Roman allies starting to turn to the side of the Carthage. So Rome's destiny hung by a thread at this moment. And the family of Scipios was, if not responsible, but directly involved all these major decisions in the early stage of the war. The last time we hear about this younger Asina is 211, the same year that his relatives died in Hispania, and when he was arguing against Fabius Maxius Cunctator, and Scipio wanted for more aggressive strategy against the enemy, while Fabius Maximus Cunctator wanted to play it slow and kind of pursue the war with delaying tactics against Carthage. We don't know if this younger Scipio Asina had any children, so we don't know if the family line continued after him or not. At least there were no consuls or otherwise notable persons in it. When we take overview of these lives and careers of these early generations of Scipiones, they are filled with military commands, and it seems that this really sets the tone for the whole family culture for the centuries to come, and military glory became very indispensable part of the Scipio image, and also the family story. Kind of thing that was told always about Scipios was that they were skillful commanders. And why is this? Well, Rome fought many crucial wars during this period, that's for sure. And it's not surprising to find military emphasis in a family that was so active in these years. Still, I think it seems that the Scipiones took the military ideal as the family trait knowingly. They wanted that themselves as well. And then they choose to upkeep this image for many generations. So they could well have turned their attention into another kind of priorities for the family, but they really continued emphasizing the military prowess as a hallmark of their family. And what I think is important to understand is that Scipiones really had the means to gain consulships in these years. It's no coincidence that they were elected as consuls. And it meant that they had to have many suitably aged family members. And they have to have the wealth, they have to have the connections, the ambition, everything that was required for the rise in the Roman society. And I think we could argue that the real rise of the family already had begun or even happened before the Punic Wars era. But what is fact also is that the family truly rose into unparalleled level during these generations, and their victories, their fame also carried until to the end of Republic and even to the imperial era. So Punic Wars and Scipios really go hand in hand in history for a long time after that, and it also affected the whole family focus really. And next we will take a look at these two main family lines. I have here prepared a cleaned up version of the family tree, and here you can see highlighted the first family branch of the two main branches. And this I call the Scipio-Nasica branch, and it begins with the son of Scipio Calvus. And the first Scipio-Nasica was consul at 191. And this election for the consul of 191 was remarkable for the Scipiones otherwise as well, because it was intra-family competition really. And in this competition, Scipio Nasica won over his cousin Scipio Asiaticus, who became consul a year later. But I think it was very interesting from the family point of view that the family allowed two of its members to stand up as candidates for consulship at the same year. They didn't need to do that. There was absolutely no point of doing it, I think. So what they did was that they put two family members to run against each other to kind of find out the pecking order of the family lines, I think. And Scipio Asiaticus then got his chance a year later, so he didn't really suffer there, but was just shown his place in the family order. And also, when we look more closely at these individuals involved and their family lines, we will note that there is a very different family cultures between these Scipio branches. And was this the starting point of the different family cultures? We don't know. Perhaps it was already at the generation of their fathers, which for me would seem a bit more likely, but we don't have any evidence. This first Scipio Nasica, consul of 191, is remembered also that he had the honor to being selected as the most virtuous Roman. And what this meant was that Rome decided to bring the cult statue of Magna Mater into Rome, and in this way to transfer the whole cult center of Magna Mater into Rome from its original place. And it was said that only the most virtuous Roman can be trusted with this incredibly important and holy task. And Scipio Nasica was considered by his contemporaries as the most virtuous of all Romans and most suitable person to bring this new divinity into Rome, into her new home. So it was an incredibly important honor for the whole family and obviously for the Scipio Nasica himself. Scipio Nasica was also a skilled military commander as his family tradition, and he fought in Lusitania and Gallia, and he won his triumph there. He candidated for censorship for 2 times, but he wasn't elected, which is kind of, I think, surprising considering that the censors were responsible for the public morale, and Scipio was considered to be the best of the Romans. So kind of censorship would logically belonged to him, and he tried for 2 times, but he wasn't elected. So it is kind of stain in his glory in that sense. The son of this first Scipio Nasica who is consul of twice consul at 162 and 155, and his name is Publius Cornelius Scipio Nasica Corculum. He also reached a censorship. He was selected as princeps senatus, and he was a triumphator. And this means that he is one of the few people in the Roman history to achieve all these honors. And evidently this makes him one of the leading statesmen of his era. And Nasica Corculum really had a genuine and even I think political agenda of conviction. He was a traditionalist. He opposed all Greek influences in Roman culture, and this makes him to be in very stark contrast to his contemporary Scipio Africanus and also later Scipio Aemilianus, who in the other branch of the Scipio family were strong advocates of the Hellenism and favored Greek culture. So we can see this kind of opposition inside the family and very opposite attitude towards the Greek culture overall. And also Scipio Nasica Corculum was vehemently opposed against the Third Punic War, and Scipio Aemilianus obviously was one of the main proponents of that war, wanting it to happen. So again, they clashed in this respect in politics as well. And now when we consider these differences in politics of the family lines, and even strong debate publicly over what course the Rome should take, were these two lines of Scipions really enemies of each other or more like allies? And this is a very, I think, delicate question that is difficult to answer with simple yes or no type of answer. Because what we can observe here in the chart is that Nasica Corculum, from all people, married with Cornelia, who was the daughter of Scipio Africanus. So this daughter of Scipio Africanus acted as kind of glue between these battling family lines. And one can only wonder the true meaning of this union. Was this really an attempt to amend the relations between the family lines? Was there some kind of financial motivation to keep it in the family? Or what was really behind of this marriage and why it was done? Or was it just for the show for the other families and other people that regardless of the evident disagreement in politics, the two family lines still held very much on to each other. And it's a very interesting marriage to study, and I would encourage everybody to look closer into it and try to find what was really behind it. Nasica Corculum was also known as a very skilled public speaker, and he knew the law well. So he was very strong into any arguments in politics involving law and order. His politics often advanced the position of the Senate and in the society and in the decision making. So he was very much a senatorial kind of political figure. Nasica Corculum served under Lucius Aemilius Paulus in the Third Macedonian War, and also was proven to be a skilled military commander. So what we can already see here is that he really lived up to the family reputation in many ways, being important in society and becoming a consul and being a skilled military commander and everything. As I mentioned, he was elected consul twice, but actually he finished only one consulship. What this means that the first consulship of Nasica Corculum was controversial. He was elected, all right, But after the election, the consul of the year responsible for the election noticed that he had made a religious error in the election process, and therefore, for the Roman standards, this nullified the election results. So if I would be a consul and I would arrange an elections and I would make a religious error there, that would invalidate the whole election results, and there would have to be a new election arranged. And this is very Roman kind of culture, where the beginning of the things is really more important often than the end of the things. So things have to be done correctly, and if they weren't done correctly, they were invalid, and this is very, very Roman thing to happen. But what's interesting is that the consul himself here noticed that he had made this error in the elections. Well, it can happen, and it was very honest of him to admit this error that nobody else was talking about. And the consul in this question was Tiberius Sempronius Gracchus. And what makes this very interesting is that this Gracchus was married also to a daughter of Scipio Africanus. So Scipio Africanus, his both daughters were here kind of involved in this spectacle. Also, Gracchus was himself a two-time consul, so he was. It's not a question like having some inexperienced guy as a consul and making a mistake. No, this was very experienced statesman, very respected one also in the whole of the Rome, and universally considered as very skilled person. For him making a mistake starts to sound a bit suspicious, I think. I think the possibility of this being a real error in the election process is very distant. It is much more likely that this is somehow connected into political struggles against Nasica Corculum. Was Scipio Africanus somehow involved here? I don't know. And what was the role of these marriages and so on, we don't know. But there certainly was something strange in this whole episode. But in any case, this was not the end of the political career of Nasica Corculum. Because there was a rule that after consulship one could not elected again within 10 years of time as consul. But as you can notice, the Nasica Corculum was elected again at 155, and this was considered okay because he didn't finish the first consulship that he was elected into. And this second time, he also could finish his term in office normally. During his consulship, he fought in Dalmatia, and he won a triumph there. So he really got everything okay after all. Nasica Corculum was also is also known for history that he is the person who forced to dismantle the first stone-built theater building in Rome. And this new stone theater had seats for the audience to sit in and watch the plays. And Nasica Corculum said that traditionally Romans watched the theatrical plays by standing up, not sitting down like Greeks. So it was considered unworthy of the Roman honor to sit down and watch the plays. It was considered too feminine for these very manly Romans of traditionalist ideas. Well, this can be also attributing reason here why he chose to tear down that stone theater. But what is perhaps more likely is that this was part of his campaign to be selected as Pontifex Maximus to show that he really held up the religious values highly. And it also may be a part of senatorial politics of prevent building of permanent structures where the public gatherings could take place, and possibly trouble rousers could gather crowds and start enticing them against the nobility. So there are many possible motivations here, and they not really even necessarily be contrary to others. So maybe there has been already many motivations for it. During the lifetime of Nasica Corculum, he had a very important competitor in traditionalism and in traditional Roman values, and that was obviously the Cato the Elder, who famously supported the Third Punic War while Corculum opposed it. So there were many kind of political ideologies competing inside Rome at this time, and some political decisions were very much affected by these alignments of these different groupings in Roman politics. The son of Corculum followed his father in the space in the office of Pontifex Maximus. So here we can see, I think, already fourth Pontifex Maximus of the Scipio family over time. He didn't, though, reach as high career as his father did. And this Publius Cornelius Scipio Nasica Serapio was consul at 138. And he started his career by serving in the Third Punic War under Scipio Aemilianus, so he was aligned with the Atto family branch as well, quite tightly, and followed into the war. What we really remember this Nasica Serapio is from the events of 133, and this is the time of Tiberius Gracchus trying to drive through his reformist agenda of the Roman society, and Scipio Nasica Serapio was very much against Tiberius Gracchus. And there was a meeting in the Senate, and Nasica Serapio came into this meeting with a plan that he wanted to entice the Senate to act against Gracchus. And the consul of the year, Mucius Scaevola, was of different line. He wanted to negotiate with Gracchus and even was ready. He was a famous lawyer, very skilled in law, and he wanted to modify the proposals, or write these proposals of Gracchus into a form that could be accepted by the senatorial elite. But Nasica Serapio had already chosen his line of action, and it was not anyhow to be conciliatory towards the Gracchus. And in dramatic speech in the Senate, he took the stage in Senate, and he had his head covered like the priest do, so indicating that he was speaking with religious authority there, and demanded that Tiberius Gracchus must be stopped. And when the consul Mucius Scaevola wasn't going to play along with this demand, Nasica Serapio shouted that all who want to protect Rome follow me, and the senators formed this kind of a core of the crowd that rushed out from the Senate building and went and killed Gracchus in public gathering. So this was clearly something that Nasica Serapio wanted to do. He wanted to kill Tiberius Gracchus and didn't saw any kind of compromise possible. It has been said that from the reforms of Gracchus, Nasica Serapio was one of the senators who personally would suffer the most economical damage, because the lands he had taken for himself quite illegally would be confiscated and distributed to poorer people, and he didn't want this to happen. But I think its matter is overall more complicated than that, and it was really a question more about ideology than simple financial gain, even though the financial motivation must have been there, and it was part of this calculation. This murder of Tiberius Gracchus Nasica Scipio was never really held responsible for it. There was no court case. He didn't have to defend his actions at all. And instead, he was sent as envoy to the east into Pergamum. And this was, of course, traditional Roman way to handle difficult persons. It was to send them as ambassadors into foreign lands and let the things cool down while they were away. And the public would obviously quite soon forgot things, and things would cool down in Rome, in the city of Rome. What's interesting is that he was Pontifex Maximus, which means that technically he wasn't allowed to exit the city of Rome. But this wasn't seen as such a big problem, and he was sent into this diplomatic mission. What happened was he died during this diplomatic mission, and his death was quite sudden and unexpected. So obviously there was talk about him being poisoned there by someone. If the marriage of his father Nasica Corculum and Cornelia was interesting one, this marriage of Nasica Scipio was interesting one as well. His mother Cornelia was known to be a woman with very formidable willpower, and when the marriage of his son, her son, with Caecilia Metella was decided, I think Cornelia had a lot to do with this. This Caecilia Metella was daughter of Metellus Macedonicus, war hero and one of the leading members of the plebeian elite of the time into Rome. But and in any case, it was a marriage between the leading families of Rome. This is the generation of Scipiones Nasicae, Corculum and Serapia, from which we have information about their marriages, but we don't actually have information about the marriages of the earlier generations of this family branch, which is interesting in itself, and maybe it tells that at earlier stages the marriages weren't as important part of the aristocratic competition in Rome. And maybe also here we can see the handwriting of Cornelia as well, that she introduced this kind of high society marriages into this family branch of Scipiones. This is something worth thinking about and investigating further. The son of Nasica Scipio became consul at 111, and he died during his consular year. Both of his sons were adopted, and actually this ends the line of Scipiones Nasicae, because there was nobody to continue the name. Consul of 111 was married to Liciniia, and this Liciniia was the daughter of Consul of 95, Licinius Crassus Orator, who also was one of the leading names of his own times. So with these marriages to Caecilia Metella and Liciniia, this family branch of Scipiones Nasicae really choose only the topmost candidates from the Roman society. Interestingly enough, these both were from plebeian families, not from the patrician families. So perhaps there is also some kind of ideal of uniting even larger support base in the society behind these married couples, because then they would be appealing with some justification for both plebeian and patrician side. So it's a very interesting marriages that this family line has here in the end of the family line, in the last generations of it. Family branch of the Scipiones Nasicae lasted over 200 years, 5 or 6 generations, as you want to count them. And all of them reached consulship, and it also had 3 triumphatores, 2 pontifex maximi, censor and princeps senatus. So it was really extraordinarily successful family line in Roman history. There was a lot of pact here, in civic and military honors. And these generations were in the center of decision making from the Punic Wars to the end of the Republic. And these persons aligned themselves with other leading families of the Republic. So pretty much what happened during the history of Rome in this era, someone from this family line of Scipios was involved in one way or another in those events. And that makes this family so interesting and so powerful, really, in its time. And in many ways, this is the most successful branch of the most successful family in Rome. And they were not shy about it. They really made it known that they were the ones who were special ones and chosen ones. And Scipiones Nasicae have this kind of proud, even arrogant family image. And they certainly were not the man of the people. They were high nobility and they knew it. Scipiones Nasicae obviously built upon the success of the early generations of Scipiones from the time of the Punic Wars. And it would have been impossible for them to rise out of nothing into this kind of position. But also it would have been impossible for them to keep their influence this high in the society unless they themselves also had some skills and qualifications. So I think it would be a mistake to dismiss them only as free riders or freeloaders in the back of the first Scipiones generations. No, I think they were exceptionally talented and really earned their place in the top of the Roman society, because it was so dynamic environment that you really couldn't do well there without any qualifications at all. There had to be more than just family heritage and family name to get you into these kind of successes that this family branch reached. So I think when we talk about Scipiones, we really ought more talk about Scipiones Nasicae than what we do currently. And this is simply because they were so successful. They were so important part of the history of Rome and also the history of their own family. And I think the people of these times knew that, and maybe that also explains some of the decisions later on that seem pretty incomprehensible for us sometimes, and about why Scipiones from this line were so revered and why they were given such high honors even at the end of the Republic. So I think explanation lies there, and we ought to consider Scipiones Nasicae and the whole Scipio family in the bit different light than what we usually do. And of course, the reason why we don't talk that much about Scipiones Nasicae is the family line of Africani. The names of Africanus Major and Africanus Minor, they really outshadow everything in the Scipionic family and also of many other people of their own time. And to get behind these names and their glory and to understand what kind of family produced these kind of exceptional talents and exceptional lives that were so important even in the history of Rome and history of world itself in many ways. I think we ought to take a look next into the family line of the Africani and also compare it with what we know about the family line of Scipiones Nasicae. The story of the family line had its starting point at the consul of the 218, whose sons were Scipio Africanus and Scipio Asiaticus, as mentioned. The consul of 205 and 294, Scipio Africanus the elder, I think he is probably the most famous of Romans of all time, alongside with Gaius Julius Caesar. And Africanus the elder many ways embodies the ideals of the Roman military commander and statesman, and even a cultural icon of his time. And he's reputation is so grand that he outshines his contemporaries in the imagination of the modern people. The start of the career of Scipio Africanus was in the army of his father, and this is at the moment when they were traveling to Hispania and learned that Hannibal was crossing the Alps that I referenced before. The uncle of Scipio Africanus continued to Hispania, and Scipio Africanus followed his father to northern Italy. And Scipio Africanus himself was there when his father was wounded in battle, and also he was present at the disastrous battle of Cannae later on. And Africanus survived Cannae and started to organize the survivors into coherent troops again. So his military career had pretty dramatic and tragic start. He was not responsible for these defeats, but I think he learned the importance of the victories in hard way there. At 213 he was elected as edile, and he was massively popular within the Roman people. And he even wasn't old enough to be elected as an edile by the age rules in the election laws. But people voted him, and the Senate approved that, okay, people want him, so people can have him as an edile. And this was 2 years before his father and uncle died in Hispania. And when at 211 this happened, this tragic year for the Scipiones, it's interesting that Scipio Africanus was appointed as a commander in their place in Hispania. So it was a family affair really deeply, that he was wanted to command at very young age. Remember that important part of the Roman army that was fighting in Hispania. And actually he was the first Roman to be appointed as proconsul without being elected as a praetor or consul first. Usually title of proconsul implied that it was given imperium of consul in place of a consul, so to speak. And usually people who received that caliber of imperium, that was actually the second most highest military command that there was in the Republic. They had already served at least as a praetor and quite often also as a consul. But he was the first one to get this kind of extraordinary honor. And he really lived up to that expectations, because in few years' time he drove all of the forces of Carthage out of the Hispania, and his battle, for example, in the Carthago Nova was and is still studied as a masterpiece of military skill. And so his winnings were not out of pure luck, no. They were really about the skill, and of course he had important advisors and family friends and everything to support him, but really it was his military skills himself that enabled these victories. He was elected as consul in 205, and he was only 31 years old. That is 10 years before the legal minimum age to be elected as consul. And I think this reward was quite understandable from the part of the Roman people. He had really made important impact there in the war. He demanded to have command in Africa against Hannibal. He wanted to finish up the Punic War in Africa, attacking to the Carthaginian heartlands. But the Senate, under the leadership of Quintus Fabius Maximus Verrucosus, opposed this. They really didn't want to give him that kind of command. And compromise was reached, and Scipio Africanus was given Sicily as his province. and he was given provision that he could expand the fighting into Africa if that was necessary, but he would not have any new troops assigned to him from the Senate. So Senate tried to prevent his African expansion of the war by not granting a permission to have more troops there, and focus only on war in Sicily. And nevertheless, Scipio proceeded according to his own vision and prepared a landing into Africa. And this was a successful operation, and Carthage was ready to start peace negotiations. At this time, the consul Cornelii Scipio tried to remove Scipio Africanus from the command and have himself appointed there. His logic being that he was the consul, and this kind of important phase in the war demanded the consular kind of person there to lead the operations. Obviously, this was just thinly veiled attempt to grab all the glory of finishing up the war against Carthage, because everybody knew that Carthage was now down its last moments and last breaths. So taking up the command, this Cornelii Scipio thought that he could easily grab the glory for himself and obviously gain a triumph for that. But Scipio would not have this, and he continued the active operations in Africa, and at battle at Sama, he beat up the Carthaginian forces, and Carthage was forced into accepting peace. And Senate didn't want to take that away from him anymore. The peace terms were harsh, as we know, and Scipio was granted the triumph and an honorary nickname of Africanus. So this is where he earned his nickname. And Africanus means the conqueror of Africa. So it was a really high and highly deserved honor as well for the whole family. It's obvious that this victory at the Second Punic War made Scipio very popular, and he rose into kind of unprecedented position amongst the Romans of all times. He became a legend, living legend, so to speak. But this also made other noble families and noble persons very jealous of his fame and popularity. He was elected as censor in 199, and as censor with his colleague, he appointed himself as the new princeps senatus, which was probably quite deserved, although quite self-serving appointment as well. When he could, that is the legal requirement of 10 years had lapsed from his first consulship, he candidated and was elected as a consul for second time in 194. At 192, there was a war in the east beginning against Antiochus, and Scipio Africanus supported his brother Asiaticus as commander for it. The Senate granted this appointment to Asiaticus with the condition that Scipio Africanus would be part of the command himself. And then the brothers won this war and collected a massive loot. When returning to Rome, Scipio Africanus was accused, alongside with his brother, of stealing part of this massive loot from the east. And at Senate hearing, Scipio Africanus answered to these accusations by asking that why Senate was asking after mere 3,000 talents of gold, while he had already brought to the state 15,000 talents worth of gold. And this is kind of very high-handed and arrogant way to answer, obviously, but for him it seemed reasonable that he already had done so much. So why would be the Senate complaining about some thousands of kilograms of gold here or there? He even took the scrolls of papyri containing the bookkeeping of the military command in the east and burnt them in the sight of the Senate, making sure that there was no evidence about anything. And in true Roman style, he was acquitted. He wasn't persecuted for this, I think, pretty obvious stealing of the money for himself. But he was forced to withdraw from the public life, and he was quite bitter in his later years, and he went to live in the countryside. He built himself a villa in the countryside that some say that resembled more like a fortress, and he invited many of his old military comrades there to spend time with him. So I think he was quite thoroughly also a military man in this respect, that and he himself saw himself as a military man right until end of his life. But of course he was more than just a skilled commander. He was married with the daughter of the commander of Battle of Cannae, Lucius Aemilius Paulus. This Aemilia, wife of Scipio, was also a very notable figure, an important figure in family history. Their sons didn't rise higher than a praetor, and they were childless. And their daughters were married to Scipio Nasica Corculum and Tiberius Sempronius Gracchus, consul of 177 and 163, as mentioned before. What's interesting is that the ancestors of Scipio were known as Barbatus, the bearded Scipiones. But Scipio Africanus himself became a fashion icon for Romans with his clean-shaven look. So he shaved his beard off every morning and was always seen as clean-shaved. And this fashion amongst the Roman nobility lasted for 300 years until the Emperor Hadrianus again started growing beard. So from the times of Scipio until the Emperor Hadrianus, Romans were clean-shaven because of Scipio Africanus started it. He also wore his toga in new way. He folded in differently. So I think he was very... he knew what he was doing. He was creating a new image of himself and new image for Roman man also. So it was very much a cultural project that he took here. He was skilled public speaker and a really ardent admirer of Greek culture. And of course this was to the horror of the arch enemy Cato the Elder, who clashed with him many times. Scipio Africanus was also the first commander to expand Roman territory outside Italy, and this really marks the beginning of the Mediterranean domination of Rome. So once again, at the very turning point of the Roman history, we see Scipio commanding the armies and making the final decisions. Scipio Africanus was also the first member of his family to reach consulship, censorship, and being princeps senatus and triumphator. And with Scipio Nasica from the other family line, this makes the Cornelii Scipiones the other family besides Fabii Maximii to have more than one member reaching this ultimate glory. Fabii Maximii had 3 and Cornelii Scipiones had 2 members like this, and this actually forms half of all people who reach this level of glory in the history of Rome. So when we talk about the family of Scipiones, then we must understand that it was an exceptional family in this regard. Brother of Scipio Africanus was Scipio Asiaticus. He was consul at 190, and his career began with his brother in Hispania. So he gained military experience there, and he also gained a reputation for military talent and won a personal duel against a famous mercenary there, which was of course in the good tradition of Hellenic and Greek military traditions of commander fighting this kind of famous duel against very skilled opponents. And Scipio Africanus gave Scipio Asiaticus the honor of traveling to inform the Senate about the victory in Hispania. So he was very much in tide with the victories in Spain as well. The triumph of Scipio Asiaticus was won in the war in the east, where his brother served as his advisor. And Scipio Asiaticus didn't advance in the position of censor because he lost the election in 184 against Marcus Porcius Cato the Elder. There is a long tradition of ridiculing military skills of Scipio Asiaticus, but I think that the more recent research has proven his reputation to be mostly incorrect. It's certain that he was not in the same class as his brother as a military commander, but in no way that he was kind of poor military commander. No, he was skilled in military affairs as well. We don't know anything about marriages of Scipio Asiaticus, and also his son didn't reach high offices for some reason. I think this should be quite surprising considering the wealth and family position that the Scipiones had in these times. And certainly they had the means and the heritage to do it if they only could do it. So probably simply they weren't interested in the public career or were somehow maybe had physical defects or something, but we don't know. What's interesting here in the end of this Africanus line is that both sons of Scipio Asiaticus and Scipio Africanus performed poorly in their public career, and there was a real danger of the whole family branch disappearing because this lack of performance and lack of names also. The eldest sons of Scipio Africanus eldest of the sons of Scipio Africanus had health problems, and he served only as augur. He was considered talented in that respect, and also talented in writing and history and academic pursuits. But his health problems prevented him for serving the public career or taking military career. What he did was that he adopted the son of Lucius Aemilius Paulus Macedonicus, who was obviously the old family contact of the Scipiones. And I will discuss more about this adoption of the Scipio younger and later on, and at the end of these presentations. But let me end the Scipiones Africanae part here just by noting that there was no children for the Scipio the Younger, and the family branch of Africani ends with him permanently. And as mentioned, this Africanus family line is more famous and better known for the modern people, but it was considerably more short-lived compared to the Nasica family of Scipiones, and also it had less successes in it. But it still belongs into the legendary Roma families of extraordinary military, political, and cultural accomplishments of its members. And it's no way an exaggeration to say that they changed Roman history forever. The cultural contributions of both Africani were immensely important in terms of fashion and in terms of culture, of literature and arts and everything. So they were very influential in great many more ways than I could have time here to present correctly. Next, let's take a look at the last of the Scipiones. And here is a simplified family tree emphasizing the important family connections of the last of the Scipiones. You can see him here, him in the second most bottom row. This Quintus Caecilius Metellus Pius Scipio Nasica was the last of the Scipiones, and if we consider his predecessors, his forefathers, there was 13 consuls, 5 censors, 9 triumphatores, and 2 principes senati in this family line of the Scipiones, Licini, Crassi, and Caecili Metelli combined. And I think it's safe to say that no matter what he would do in life, there was always someone from the family who had done more or better. And he really had no hope to surpass his forefathers in terms of glory. And whatever he would do, he would always be remembered as less than his predecessors. And he did reach consulship and he had a triumph, but regardless of all this, he still is often depicted as a very poor military leader and sometimes even a shallow and unintelligent person. Be that as it may, but I think we would describe him very differently if he had won the civil war against Gaius Julius Caesar. The victor really writes the history in this regard. And I think this is also the problem when we try to understand his life and career. We see the end result, the failure, and the family background and its meaning is pretty much ignored when we look back at him. And yes, Metellus Scipio was commander of the forces of the Senate at Pharsalos and Thapsus, and both of these battles were victories for Caesar. And in this sense, it's justified to describe his command as failure. But it's also a bit unfair comparison, because unlike Caesar, he had to deal with the internal politics of the senatorial side. There were many others as well who wanted glory and were eager to use their influence in any and all decisions that was made. And whereas in the other side, Caesar had the sole authority to make all decisions. So it was very different kind of setting that Caesar and Metellus Scipio were acting from. Metellus Scipio is remembered also as the senator who proposed that the Senate should issue Senatus Consultum Ultimatum against Caesar, and as they did, and actually that Senatus Consultum Ultimatum was directly leading into the civil war, because Caesar didn't obey it. And this was an obvious mistake, because I think Metellus Scipio and other senators did not expect Caesar to go to war at this stage, and even if they did, at least that he wouldn't do it so fast and rapid manner. So politically as well, we remember him as a failure, but that was failure that was shared by many at this time. His daughter Cornelia Metella was married to Pompeius Magnus, to Pompeius, and he was the consul together with Pompeius at 52. And from this it has been deduced that really it was the Pompeius who held the real power and made the decisions, and influenced even the decisions of Metellus Scipio. But I think the reality might be a little more complicated than that. We shouldn't be so easy to throw judgment here. But in any case, after the defeats of the military forces against Caesar and the death of Pompeius Magnus, Metellus Scipio retreated into Africa, and he saw the situation in war as hopeless, and he committed suicide. What is said, the little good what is said about him is about his death, and it is said that in death he for the first time showed the greatness worthy of his family name. And there is a story connected to it that goes that after these defeats on one night, he was in his tent in the military camp, and the guards of his tent asked if everything was all right, and he just answered that Imperator se bene habet, which means that all is well with the commander. And when the guards left him alone, he killed himself by stabbing with a dagger. Who knows, maybe it's true. But I think this whole story of the last Scipio gets a bit different outlook when we consider the situation in the whole family line. Because the Scipiones, and at the end of the Republican times, they were a different family from what they had been in the times of Punic Wars. At earlier times there had been more active family lines, more children in them, and many members of the family at the same time building their careers and ready to climb into the highest positions of the Republic. But at the time of the last Scipio, both of the main family lines had diminished and almost extinguished. And there were no family members to carry on the name with promising careers. And why this situation with Scipiones? I think this is a direct consequence of the family planning errors. Marriages, for example, in the Scipio Nasica line, but also at the Scipio Africani line, they were politically ambitious and they were expedient in many ways, but they did not produce strong nuclear families. They did not produce families that would generate a lot of children that would have successful careers. And having enough children at each generation is the first requirement for the successful family line. If you don't have family members, then you don't have the family. And I think this ambitious and dynastic family strategy was driven forward especially by the daughters of Scipio Africanus, two Cornelii. And it really withered out both Nasica and Africanus family lines. And I think we should ask that could the results have been different if different decisions were made about marriages and family strategies, and maybe this emphasis on military skill wasn't that good in the long run for the Scipiones family. And next I will take a more in-depth look exactly into this area. These last generations of the Scipio Africani line, and how those decisions were made and what kind of family conditions and family cultures were prevailing during those times. And here we have the simplified family tree, and what you can see here are the Scipiones Africani line, the most important members, as well as with some other Scipiones and their marriages and connections to the other high families of Rome. And what we do next is we examine these generations and especially their cooperation with the Emili Pauli next. Some words about Emili Pauli. They were a very wealthy and powerful Patrician family, and the first consul of the family was at 302, and the family had long traditions being in power. And during the Punic War, this was at year 255, consul Marcus Aemilius Paulus was the famous admiral of Rome, so he was a naval commander. And considering that Scipio Asina was made consul at the following year, it is possible that the families worked together already at this time. So it was a very long cooperation between families by all accounts. Son of the consul of 255, Aemilius, was consul at 219 and 216. And 218, that is 1 year after his first consulship, he was followed by Lucius Cornelius Scipio as consul. So there was again this kind of arrangement. And at the second consular term of Aemilius at 216, he suffered this defeat in Cannae, with young Scipio Africanus fighting under his command and marrying his daughter. So there are lots of these contact points between these two families, and that really paint a picture of close cooperation between them that had lasted at least from the 250s onwards. Wife of Scipio Africanus, Emilia Paula, and she is very interesting example of position and role of the noble women in the time in Rome. And Roman society didn't give much opportunities for men to dress up or wear jewelry. And as we noticed, Scipio Africanus overcame this by starting a new fashion trend of shaving the beard and wearing his toga a bit differently. But really, when it comes to dresses and expensive jewelry, it was Emilia, the wife of Scipio, who done it. And the rules for women were much looser in this sense. And Emilia was especially known for her expensive taste and great wealth. And she made a number out of it, really. She always moved with large entourage, and this was also a signal of power amongst the Roman men, which is interesting to note. And as per her position in many ways in the society, she was responsible for many religious rites in public. And in these rites, you had religious artifacts you used. And her artifacts were always golden and most magnificent kind. So there was no kind of downplay of wealth here. Her dresses were expensive, and everything basically what she did was enhancing the status of the family and underlining the rich and might of the family. Emilia also forgave relationship with other women to her husband. Scipio Africanus famously liked beautiful women, and Emilia tolerated this just to keep up the appearances and the family name, and even showed some grandness in this regard. And when Scipio Africanus died, Emilia continued this work of building up the family position and family image. She had the death mask of Scipio to be placed in the temple of Jupiter in Capitolium, and that is the national shrine of Rome, the most important religious place in Rome, and there would be the image of Scipio Africanus for the later generations. And this, I think, is a very powerful statement about the religion, about the position of the family, and how extraordinary Scipio Africanus was. So when we discuss and when we kind of relive this greatness of Scipio Africanus, we also should remember that it is an image that is carefully constructed and purposefully built to underline the exclusiveness of Scipio Africanus. So here we can see the kind of family culture that the Scipiones had, and how it was far from simple military glory. You know, they weren't just simple soldiers who did their duty for the country, but they were actively constructing their public image in these ways. And I think in some ways it could even be said that Emilia was more Scipionic in her reputation building program than the Scipios themselves sometimes. This is perhaps a bit an exaggeration, but I think it's important to note that Emilia wasn't herself born into the Scipionic family. She was married there, and still she did a lot of reputation building for the family. And I think this was clearly a conscious choice from her, and because her own family was very married as well, with several consuls and important military commanders there. And I think we should also consider that the families were so closely aligned that the work that Emilia did for building up the Scipio honor and name also added to the glory of her own family of birth, the Aemilii Paulii. What happened to Aemilii Paulii then? they had a very surprising end for the whole family line. The 2 times consul and celebrated war hero Lucius Aemilius Paulus Macedonicus was to be the last of his name, despite having 4 sons from 2 marriages. And how did this happen was quite extraordinary thing and extraordinary coincidences as well. The first marriage of Paulus Macedonicus was with Papiria Masonia, and he had 2 sons with her. We don't know the exact reason, but he divorced from Papiria and remarried with someone. Actually, we don't know the name of the second wife. But what we do know is that when he had got 2 sons with his second wife as well, he reckoned that he could not afford to sponsor the careers of 4 sons, and gave his oldest sons away in adoption to other families. And the decision for adoption helped 2 struggling patrician families. So there is clearly a patrician agenda behind all this. Cornelii Scipiones and Fabii Maximi, which means that Quintus Fabius Maximus Aemilianus and Publius Cornelius Scipio Africanus Aemilianus were welcomed into their new families as very welcome addition to the family line to keep the families alive. And this is not simple act of doing favor to fellow patrician families, no, because with these adaptations it is obvious that Emily Pauli wanted to build a more lasting alliance with these 2 patrician families that were, as I already mentioned, extraordinarily highly placed in the Roman scene. And I think this far the things went very well for Aemilius Paulus. He had divorced his first wife, took a second wife, made children with them, adopted his sons, arranged adoption of his sons into other important families, so he kind of had everything there under control. But then the tragedy struck to the family of Aemilius Paulus, and both of his younger sons died young, and the family was left without an heir to continue their name. So it was quite a tragedy there. In theory, Aemilius Paulus could have adopted someone, but he chose not to do so. And this is one of those remarkable and inexplicable decisions of history. We don't know why he didn't adopt anyone. He would have had means, he would have had name, anybody would have been welcome to be adopted by him into the family and to be his heir apparent. And this is also a very different attitude towards family than what his sister, who was married to Scipio Africanus, was doing. Emilia was doing everything in her power to ensure the survival of the family and building of the family name and glory, while Aemilius Paulus himself seemed to give up and do nothing. This is very, very interesting contrast there, and also an example of family culture, I think, because Emily Pauli didn't have this kind of strong drive to keep their family line alive, whereas for the Scipiones it was almost like more important than anything else in this world. And also we can take a perspective here that from the perspective of family alliances, the Scipiones did find a way to get maximum benefit out of this alliance, and Aemilius Paulus' family simply died out during their cooperation. So it was kind of, Scipio Aemilianes hugging the Emily Pauli death as a family here, which is a very interesting, I think, example of family dynamics in the Roman high society and how things could go despite even best plans. And considering the family history of Scipiones, the cruel fate of Emily Pauli was just, side note or a prelude of what was about to happen. Adopted Scipio Aemilianus found his new family to be quite demanding one, and there is historical evidence about this. He was stressed and felt the pressure to succeed very strongly. His aunts, the two Cornelii, daughters of Africanus, were very dominant and demanding personalities, and they installed this kind of demands to Scipio Aemilianus to succeed in life and live up to his name. And also, if you consider his aunt from the Emily side, Emilia, who is by adoption actually his grandmother now, he also felt this kind of legacy of the family for focusing in the building of the family name. So it is very pressurized environment that this young Scipio Aemilianus found himself in. The daughter of Scipio Africanus and Emilia follows this ambitious family planning when she was married to the consul of 177 and 163 Tiberius Sempronius Gracchus. And there is also a story about this marriage that's interesting, and that is that Scipio Africanus had agreed about the marriage with Gracchus himself, but he had not discussed about this beforehand with Emilia. And then when arriving home, Scipio told that he had some news to tell to Emilia, and that he had agreed to marry their daughter. Emilia was first furious of not being consulted, and then asked that with whom this marriage was arranged. And when Scipio answered that it was Tiberius Sempronius Gracchus, then and only then Emilia cooled down and admitted that it was a good union, because the Gracchus was very respected and popular politician of his time. And this is a famous story because it confirms the position of the women of the family in the marriage planning, because it was extraordinary that Scipio Africanus had the audacity to arrange a marriage without consulting his wife first. And this is kind of very, very interesting glimpse into the reality of Roman families and the environment where they were living, and also the position of the women of the family really as a decision makers in these matters. The marriage between Cornelii Africana and Gracchus was a happy one, despite their age difference and everything. And they produced 2 sons and 1 daughter. And this daughter, Sempronia, was arranged to be wife of this adopted Scipio Aemilianus. And this was the aunt Cornelia who really forced this union to Scipio Aemilianus against his will. And showing once again the central and decisive role of women in the marriage planning in the family. The marriage of Sempronia and Scipio Aemilianus is famously unhappy one. The couple had explosive fights in the public, and the marriage was childless. And Scipio even complained about the plain looks of his wife publicly, which is not very chivalrous thing to do, but in any case. Brothers of Sempronia were raised by their mother Cornelia after passing away of their father, who was quite a bit elder. And Cornelia was a very ambitious and intellectual woman. For example, she rejected an opportunity to marry King Ptolemy VIII of Egypt. She could have become the queen of Egypt, but she rejected it and didn't remarry. Instead, she was dedicated to the upbringing of her sons, and she is famous in history, for example, inviting Greek philosophers to teach the young brothers of Gracchi. So this kind of iron will that she had and how she controlled the family affairs, I think it had a lot to do with the family situations of the Scipiones of these generations. The real family tragedy started to develop further when son of Cornelia, eldest son Tiberius Gracchus, was involved in negotiation of Roman forces surrendering in Hispania after a pretty unlucky war there. And Gracchus wanted to save the army from annihilation. Senate did not approve this deal, and Gracchus was saved only by the fact that he had negotiated under the command of the commander of the army. So it was not his idea to strike this deal. And what is interesting is that the Scipiones of the family demanded punishment in the Senate, and really much judged against this decision. And later on, when Tiberius Gracchus died, by the actions of Scipio Nasica Serapio, leading into the murder of Gracchus. And when we consider all this from the Cornelia point of view, it must have been horrible. Her daughter was in unhappy marriage, and her son was killed by her own relatives. That's the cruel fact. And furthermore, Scipio Aemilianus refused to demand a punishment for the murder, and was also a political opponent of Gracchus. And all of these tensions inside the family has given life to rumors that Cornelia was involved in the death of Nasica Serapio during his mission in the East, and also that she could have been involved in the death of Scipio Aemilianus himself as well. And the story goes that before his death, Scipio Aemilianus had been preparing a speech against the laws of the Tiberius Gracchus to be delivered in the Senate. And we don't know what his speech exactly would have contained. It probably was against, by all accounts, to proposals of Gracchus. And we don't know would it have passed in the Senate in the end. But certainly I think it is a realistic option that the speech by Scipio Aemilianus against Gracchus could have been a crucial one in fighting against the Gracchian revolution. And night before this speech, Scipio Aemilianus died suddenly. And he wasn't ill. He was said to have eaten and drink quite a lot, but we don't know what the truth is. In any case, after he had died, he was cremated, and that is against the age-old custom of Scipiones of burying the whole body. The cremation was not the Scipionic way at all. But what's interesting is that with cremation of his body, there was nobody left to examine the possible traces of poisoning. So it gave alive a lot of rumors at the time. Both Cornelia and his wife Sempronia were suspected, but we have no actual evidence to support any of these rumors. They might be just evil rumors against Cornelia and Sempronia. But what we can see here is that there were tensions, very strong family tensions behind the magnificent facade of the Scipio family. And when we observe both the facade and the reality behind it, I think it shows kind of different families, different picture of what the members of the family really wanted and what drove them forwards. And as a kind of end of the Scipio line, the family of Scipio Aemilianus, when we consider it, even if there wasn't love between Scipio Aemilianus and Sempronia, which is of course quite common thing when you have arranged marriages, like the marriages of the Roman nobility tended to be. Even if there wasn't love, there could have been children. There were many examples of families where there wasn't really any kind of emotional closeness between the mother and father, but still they would have children together. And even if there was inability to get children by either Aemilianus or Sempronia, or both, there could have been an adoption, which is very much what other families were doing all the time. There were lots of adoptions, and Scipio Aemilianus himself was adopted one. It was very common thing and accepted, and there was not any kind of stain or negative connotation being adopted in Roman setting. And despite all this, Scipio Aemilianus actively chose not to have children in any form. He didn't want children. I think that is a fact. And what his decisions effectively correspond to voluntary ending of the family line. So it was kind of a suicide of a family line by choosing not to have any children anymore. And I think here we enter the heart of the dysfunctionality of the family culture of the Scipiones. We don't know what was really behind this decision of Scipio Aemilianus, but I think we can ask questions that was he angry towards his biological father, who had ended the family line of the Aemili Pauli, or maybe he was following the kind of example of that out of revenge. Because I think it must have felt as abandonment for him to be adopted, while the sons of the new wife continued to live in his home with his father, having his place and legacy, while he was Aemilianus was adopted in the family of Scipios in the very different world. I think it would be quite natural to think that this had left its marks on the personality and persona. Or we can ask that, was Aemilianus bitter towards his aunts for forcing upon a marriage with Sempronia? I think there would have been logical reasons. He didn't want to marry her, and they didn't have anything in common between themselves. Or maybe he disagreed about the upbringing of the Gracchi brothers, and the kind of culture that the Gracchi were allowed to have while he was in the family culture of Scipiones. We don't know. Perhaps he was fed up with all this political fighting inside the family that has already continued for several generations before him, and all the tensions and scheming inside the family. We don't know, really, but we do know that he chose not to bring any children to this world. And that, I think, is a very ultimate statement about dysfunctional family culture, because if your family culture is such that you don't want to continue the family at all, you don't want to have children, then obviously there was something wrong in there. And I think that ultimately this ambitious family culture program of prevailing generations seems to have killed off the Scipiones, these two main family lines of extraordinary importance and glory in the history of Rome. Cornelia Africana and her elder sister seem to have imposed so toxic family culture that both family lines ended shortly after them. I think this is obvious when you look at the chart. And obviously also the men of the family carried responsibility. I'm not saying that at all. But still it strongly seems that the root cause were the dynastic marriages of the Cornelii sisters that were taken. We can ask why these marriages of the Cornelii sisters happened. Was this, for example, Hellenistic influences of Scipio Africanus? We know that Africanus really propagated so strongly Hellenistic culture, and he was self-glorifying in many ways. And actually, when you look at his actions from the point of view of Hellenistic monarch of the time, it becomes much more understandable. He acted like Hellenistic monarch, like a royal person. And there were also rumors about his regal ambitions, becoming a king in Rome. But I think those were quite unrealistic rumors, and he didn't have that kind of ambition himself. But in many ways, the Scipio Africanus and his other members of the Scipionic family from his times onwards acted like Hellenistic monarchs. Maybe this was conscious imitation, maybe this was even the cultural policy of bringing more of Greek traditions into Rome. We don't know, but I think it's certainly possible. And also the role of Emilia was a central one here, because she also came from a very pro-Hellenic family. So probably she understood very well what Scipio Africanus wanted to do, and in her own way helped doing that exactly. But also there are these clashes of family culture between Cornelii Scipiones and Emily Pauli. And I think that Emilia, Scipio, Aemilianus and Sempronia all felt difficulties in aligning with the demanding family culture of the Scipiones. I'm pretty sure that all of them felt pressurized to live their life according to Scipionic ideals instead of maybe what would have been more natural ways to live for a Roman noble of the time. Be that as it may, I think the family story of Scipios really deserves a closer look and deep analysis of what happened really there, and why this family was able to produce such magnificent individuals, and why the family itself didn't last longer in those family lines. The Scipio family overall lasted longer. They lasted well into the imperial era, but not these two family lines that were most important ones. So I think there are many layers in the family of Scipions. And the thing that doesn't help us is that we only know marriages of the Scipiones quite sporadically. We know that they had these deep connections with Emily Pauli and Sempronii Gracchi and Caecili Metelli and Licinii Grassi, but we don't know anything else. They were also connected with Cornelii Lentuli in occasions, and Cornelii Lentuli is also a family that we know very little about when it comes to family connections of theirs. So there is clearly this kind of Cornelii strain of keeping the family marriages and stuff as a secret from the following generations and from us. Family strategies, when we look at the big picture of Cornelii Scipiones, military and political careers were the main strategies employed. And we also see these dynastic marriage arrangements. We don't know how widely spread they were, or were these the only ones that we actually know of. And there were also lots of religious offices and very much a usage of wealth as part of the family building. Africanus branch was clearly built upon the military glory aspect, while Nasica branch focused more on political careers. And this is also a thing that separates them. And Africani also were sponsoring great many lesser houses to add their influences, and there is even this term of Scipionic circle, meaning the circle of lesser families that were sponsored and aligned with Scipio Africanus and also with Aemilianus. Overall, when we think about the Scipiones family strategy, the family culture seems to have been repressive, and it's wanted uniformity for the public display, but also contained a lot of tensions behind the scenes. And I think we can also see the kind of the hints of the excesses of the imperial era family culture here. The kind of overtly Greek and Hellenistic regal style of family culture that went into excesses and was very unhinged in many ways compared to the usual style of Roman families. And I think we could also ask a question that perhaps we can see that the Scipiones represented the first instance of family culture that ultimately made the republic itself fall, because the families became more with regal ambition and focus rather than the republican aristocracy. these are all very interesting questions and ideas that I think the Scipio family brings up and helps us to investigate also in the history of Rome and the Roman families. That was all. There is a great deal more that we could discuss, for example, the details of the careers of these different members of the Scipiones family, but I wanted to give this kind of oversight and overview here on the family culture and also the implications, what we can see as a result of the family culture, that how successful it eventually was. It produced these marvelous individuals, but it also ended the family itself. So it was kind of self-defeating family culture. In any ways, I'll say thank you, and I hope that we will see with another video soon.